Good afternoon. We are joined by men's and women's water polo head coach Beto Vazquez. Coach Beto, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bo. Thank you for having me.
Hey, first of all, we're obviously in the off season. Tell us how you been and how's the family doing?
Doing pretty well. Thank you for asking. This past January, my wife and I welcomed our second child, a baby
Mm,
boy, and he's going on a little bit over 3 months now.
yeah.
And it's been a big adjustment, but a really happy adjustment. Now we have two kids. I have a daughter and a son, and it's really cool to have the duo. It's a lot more work. It's great. It's
Hey,
great. So
congratulations. I
thank
guess
you,
we
thank
got
you. What can I say?
some future water polo players coming up there.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hey, although we're in the off season, many forget that, a coach's job never stops during the off season. As a matter of fact, in most cases, well, like yours particularly, it's a busy time, whether it's, learning, improvement, of course, recruiting, all that stuff comes into play. Tell us, we heard that you were recently invited to the United States Water Polo National Team Selection Camp. Tell me more about this camp and tell me what do you guys do over there?
Right, right. So this past weekend, from April 20th to the 23rd, I participated in USA Water Polo's National Team Selection Camp for the men's cadet 2007-2008 age group. In short, it's basically the final camp of USA Water Polo's Olympic development program, where athletes get selected to be a part of the USA national team for that age group. So we're talking about 15, 16-year-old boys here to make the Team USA team. I was part of a 12-person coaching staff responsible for training, coaching, evaluating, and selecting the athletes that will make the team that will hopefully travel to Greece this summer and participate in Junior Worlds in the summer of 2024. These camps are a big deal and a crucial component of the
Mhm,
future of USA water polo.
mhm.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah, we also know that you were also invited as a player to this national selection camp. Without getting to the specific date, I believe it was in the early 2000s. What do you recall about that time when you yourself as a player, and I guess a two-pronged question. What was the biggest thing you learned there as an athlete? And also in contrast, kind of what did you learn, this weekend coming out as a coach?
As an athlete, a few expectations, right? Like we knew that we were going to be pushed really hard, and we knew that we were going to be challenged to learn new things, and we knew that we were going to meet boys from all over the country. What was not really expected was the extent of how hard the work was going to be. We did not know the extent of the conditioning or what was going to be asked of us. I think what I took most out of that camp, though, was the experience of competing at such a high level that the expectations of one do change. You can't just be pretending. You can't be in the mental state that like it's just another practice. Like you can't act or behave like it's your high school team or your club team. That was a big challenge for me to be able to make that mental adjustment. It wasn't just another practice. That was
Sure.
a big change for me that I
Sure.
had to really make that change as an athlete. Hey, like there's levels to this. You have
Mhm,
to be able to make that level change in just a few days, or else you're gonna get cut.
mhm,
That was a big lesson for me, getting cut and not making the team, and then being told, hey, like you're a good player and you
mhm,
have good skills, but you need to be able to make leaps and jumps at a certain point that go a certain direction and you need to work
mhm,
on.
mhm.
That was a big wake up call for me. It's like, hey, like you still need to continue to work. Right?
Sure.
Making the camp wasn't enough. There's still levels to this. As a coach, the back end of this, I mean, the preparation leading up to the camp is just another level. Like
Mhm,
the administrative part from the actual national team coaching staff. So out of the 12 of us that went this past weekend, five of them were the actual national team coaches for
wow.
the age group and for these
Mhm,
boys. Right? They were our mentors. They were our educators. They were our leaders,
mhm,
and they so much logistic work up front. I mean, we're talking about boys from all over the country traveling
mhm,
to just one to Orange County for 4 days, setting up the pool time, setting up the food, setting
mhm,
up different meetings. I mean, this is just called the logistics of like setting up. Then they had to mentor us and coach the kids, and then evaluate us, the coaches, evaluate the kids themselves. So it's a much next level administrative
Yeah,
for a coach to prepare
sure.
for something like this. And then that's just administratively. When we're talking about like the actual water polo, I could go for hours. I could go on for hours about strategies, tactics, skills,
Yeah,
drills, player
yeah.
development. I mean, just for me, this past weekend was just big, big, and I'm super, super happy that I participated in it.
Well, let me ask you a little bit more about that. For many of us, we know the very basics of water polo, right? Although there are probably a million little details that we don't see, all the little intricacies of technique, tactics. Do technique, strategy, and tactics change in water polo? In other words, for example, like there are other disciplines, other sports, right? Or there are different eras. It changes whether it's equipment, whether it's I would imagine one of the biggest things or changes in water polo has just been the size of athletes. It seems like everyone's bigger and stronger. Are there
Mhm.
other things that change within the water polo world that you guys constantly have to kind of adapt to? And what would those be if there are?
Well, like many sports, many games that we have right now, it's always evolving and the rules are always changing.
Yeah.
Water polo, to the non-water polo sports person, I compare water polo a lot to basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And right now, we are in a different era of water polo,
Mm-hmm.
just like in basketball, the 90s and 2000s saw a lot of big center players just dominating the middle of the pool. Water polo is exactly the same. In the 80s and 90s and 2000s, it was big men, burly, strong, physical human beings just
Great
powering
point.
through everything.
Uh-huh.
Right. And just like basketball, everything right now in water polo is geared towards small ball. Right? You want to have someone who is fast, who is quick, not exactly someone who is a small player, but
Wow.
someone
Uh-huh.
who can play like a small player. Like you want
Sure.
to have a big, strong physical specimen who can move as quickly as a small guy, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing, Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? The new super freak in basketball, right?
Mm-hmm.
True center, but plays like a point. Water
Mm-hmm.
polo is headed in the exact same direction. We want tall, big, strong, fast, athletic athletes who can move and twist and contort their bodies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because of that, because the players are changing, the rules are changing. In the
Mm.
last 5 years alone, the size of the pool has changed. The markings or the parameters of the pool and
Mm-hmm.
the movements have changed. The rules have completely changed. Like before, a goalie was not allowed to play offense. They could only go up to halfway up to the
Mm-hmm.
pool. Now the goalie can be part of the offense.
Yeah.
It
Push up.
completely changes everything.
Sure.
It completely changes everything. So because there's new rules and because there's new players, learning how to coach these new rules and how to adjust was really important. So
Sure.
this past weekend, besides being part of these camps, I also attended a pair of coaching summits where I was lucky enough to learn tactics, strategies, and like focus points for athlete development and brain progression
Mm-hmm.
from men's senior national team coach Dejan Judovic
Mm-hmm.
and assistant coach Gavin Arroyo.
Mm-hmm.
These are celebrities. For me, as a water polo student and fan of someone who's been doing for 20 years, celebrities. Coach Dejan Judovic or Coach Dan. He goes like Coach Dan because no one can
Mm-hmm.
say his name correctly. He is a former Olympian and highly decorated professional athlete and coach from Serbia. And Coach Gavin Arroyo is currently the men's and women's head coach at Long Beach State, or maybe just the men's coach at Long Beach State. He is a former All American at Cal, and he is a former member of the U.S. Olympic team.
Sure.
Guys are the cream of the crop when it
Yep.
comes to water polo. So
I've heard
learning
of them,
from
Coach.
them.
I've heard of them quite a bit as well.
You have
So I'm a
awesome.
sports fan,
Oh,
so I've heard
great,
of them as well. Yeah.
great. Yeah, big deal. Big deal to finally meet them right in
Yeah.
person. Which I mean, I took pictures. I took asked for their autographs, right? I'm, they're my celebrities, right? Like
Sure.
just like LeBron is a celebrity to
Mm-hmm.
a basketball fan, right? Or just like a football player or soccer player to me. Evan Arroyo is a legend in American water polo, and Coach Dan is known all over the world when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to water polo as well. So amazing for me to be able to hang out with them and geek out over water polo.
No, I think that's amazing. And again, when we talked offline, one of the things that, that I personally love seeing is when the coaches are having, uh, you know, being able to attend these events where they're not just betterment for themselves, right? Learning new tips and tactics, but also something that they can translate over and transfer it to your current athletes today. And I'm glad you explained to us in detail the differences of water polo and how it changes. I mean, you know, who knew that, pool sizes changed because of, back then. I mean, again, just assuming, many players are probably in the 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2". Now all of a sudden you got players that are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", that are moving just as agile and as fast as those, little water bugs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like basketball. You got Nikola Jokic, who's 6'11", 7-footer, who back in the 80s were primarily a post player, throw it down low and, dunk it on somebody. Now you got this guy,
And he's a passer. He's a facilitator.
passer, and he can shoot the 3-pointer. So
And he can shoot the
it's
3-pointer.
interesting that you taught us that, because I didn't know that. Again, like I know the very basics of it. And again, like I mentioned, there's a million things going on. And some people don't look deeper into it. There's a million things happening in every single possession that some people don't see. That you guys,
I use basketball a lot because I feel like a lot of us Americans can really relate to basketball. It's everywhere, even people who don't play basketball, even the casual watcher, right, knows basketball. So I try to put it a lot in basketball terms to kind of like make that connection a little bit simpler.
Sure. Hey, Coach, last question for you. And thank you for your time again. Again, we are joined by men's and women's water polo head coach, Beto Vazquez, and telling us a little bit about his experience this past weekend. I don't know if you've already answered this, but let me just break it down a little bit. You learned quite a few things this weekend over at the selection camp, not just with the coaches, but also with guys that you respect quite well. What are some of the things that you experienced this past weekend that you think, or that you hope that you'll implement over at Mesa this upcoming season?
Well, one big one that has already been implemented, but that was reinforced by these coaches, was that our sport in our country is headed in the right direction, and that we are all a part of it. And when I was able to just exchange a few words with these coaches, when they knew when I told them who I was at the junior college level, they said that it was a really important part of the progression of our sport in our country. And that really was inspirational, motivational to hear that, because it can be difficult at times to find that in yourself. So to hear it from my idols, right, it really reinvigorated. It made me feel like a 10-year-old again. Like, wow, here I go. The next part of my water polo career is barely getting started, and I love it just like the first time when I was a little kid in Chula Vista. So that was big to have that reinforced. Second, I think that one thing that really important that I can add to my team was how the idea of intent behind learning a skill, or the idea of intent behind implementing a new strategy or tactic, or even as a coach, like, what is our intent in introducing something new? What is the point? That was something that was brought up over and over again, and questioned. Like every time we had a coaches meeting, because we must have had like a dozen meetings, it was brought up. It was part of our growth. Like, what is your intent in meeting with this athlete and explaining to them what's going on? What is your intent in really breaking down this drill? What is the intent of inputting this drill into this game plan? What is the intent of this game plan against this specific opponent? Intent. So that really, as a coach, is a real part of like a philosophy, right? And for me, it was really important to hear that, and for it to be reinforced over and over again. Like, the more you can question the intent on why we do everything in this, why we selected a certain number of players to start, or why we selected a player to sub at a certain point of a game, or why we selected to schedule certain games at a certain point in the season. Everything must have an intent. And if you're able to put intent behind every decision, then every decision is going to be that much more calculated. So intent in the way I administer my team, intent in the way that I hire my coaching staff, intent in the way that I recruit and bring in athletes, that, like, it just really, something so simple, right? But just by hearing it over and over again makes you question. By questioning it, it just made me realize how much more I still have to go as a coach, how much more I can add. I can add more details to my practices now, like how I have the confidence and the motivation, and almost like re-energized to once again redo my entire practice. Look over my notes for the last couple of years, and not just copy and paste, but like now add intent behind it, add more detail behind it. I just all of this is gonna just go straight to my really what it's gonna come down to. Right? Like this is all of this is for my athletes and
Mhm.
for them to be able to feel like they know they're gonna be better athletes by coming to this program, by graduating from this program. That's really what I'm really excited about to bring back to me is this professional and personal growth that's really going to affect our team and our program's philosophy.
Awesome. Well, coach, um, congratulations, number one. I mean, like I said, when you get to meet, your heroes and people you look up to, it's always a great thing to happen, right? And number two, we're excited for the upcoming season. Lots of improvement. Top of my head, I remember the women's team finishing at 15-9 last season, and the men's. I believe they won 6 games last season, improving as well. And now with a whole new set of tactics and strategy upcoming this season, we're looking forward to you once again doing some major impact for all the student athletes at Mesa College. So, Coach Beto, thank you again for your time, and we'll touch base soon.
Appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much.